how do you get to work together with private partners when you want to research something, you want to make innovation, you want to make research, you want to do something as a scientist, but you need the cooperation of a company. You need them to invest and work with you. How do you find your way? How do you get to talk to the people? You can't just, well, you can basically get the phone book or the internet version of that, and you can call up any big company. You get to the reception and you say, I'm a researcher, and it would be a nice test how long it would take for them to hang up the phone. I think I'll give you about 7 minutes before that happens. So there must be a different way, but it's hard to find. I would like to ask you to introduce yourself shortly and just tell me how did you get here? I mean, probably by bus, but how did you get to be here, and what's your connection to the project? Kees Linse, please.
I'm Kees Linse. I'm in the board of STW, the Technology Foundation of NWO, and I worked my life for Shell, and I came here because my wife delivered me here.
By car?
By car, yes.
Okay. Rietje van Dam, Mieras, please.
I came by car, boat and train.
Okay.
And I got up very early this morning, but that's not such an interesting information, I think. But you have various connections to the program. Yes, I'm a member of the board of VOTRO, and I'm in the program committee from the perspective of VOTRO, and to bring in the idea that to fight cultural imperialism, let's call it that way, to make sure that new technology doesn't have only a Western face, but also fits in other countries. And it's about a lot we heard this afternoon. So that's my
That was the great question that was just asked about innovation in other countries. Who gets to design the new product?
And I'm a member of the TKI, Top Consortium Knowledge and Innovation for the Bio-Based Economy. So there is a dual link to the top sectors and the top sectors NWO interaction.
Okay. Kees, please.
My name is Kees van Beers. I'm a professor of innovation management at Delft University of Technology, and also one of the co-leaders of an LDE center, a research center on frugal innovations in Africa. I'm doing that with people from Leiden and Rotterdam, for instance, Professor Peter Knorge is also here. And we recently got a research project funded on frugal innovations and responsible entrepreneurship in Africa that was funded by NWO and 3 partners from the private sector, Philips, in the health sector, and Oasen and Hartenboer, 2 Dutch firms in the water sector.
Can you first explain to me what the project is about? What are you doing there?
The idea of the project is to investigate how, with the help of several cases, how frugal innovations, which are innovations that are particularly developed for people in the low-income groups, mainly in developing countries, how frugal innovation, under what conditions can frugal innovations be considered responsible innovations, and particularly with the help of local entrepreneurship. That's also why we have responsible entrepreneurship in the title of the project.
How did you get Philips to cooperate?
Bit of a serendipity. We traveled in Kenya, me and my colleague from Leiden, André Lelyveld, and we figured out that Philips opened an iHub in Nairobi, and we happened to be there, and we walked in, or we made an appointment with the director of that, and he invited us, and he gave us the right contacts here in Eindhoven to continue with.
Because that's important. You need to know the right people. Because if you're talking to the wrong guy in the right company, you might as well be talking to the guy of the coffee shop around the corner. It won't get you anywhere. You need to know the right people. How do you get to know who's the right person within the organization?
Well, in this particular case, it was from hearsay. The guys. Well, what we basically did, I think we talked with the people in Eindhoven at Philips who were very enthusiastic. They are very creative people. They are a particular unit who are also developing all kinds of creative innovations. They were very interesting about our ideas. That doesn't mean that you have the money right away. That takes a while. And when they are interested, then that's the first step. And then the second step is you should be able to get up into the organization with their help and to get the funds.
Which of you has been working on the basis like this, as a scientist working together with people from a company, or the other way around, from a company working with scientists on a university or other kind of research center? Who has any experience in that? Just a few. It's not really. And who would be looking for anything like that? Who would say, well, that would help me out, but I just haven't found the way, or it hasn't worked out yet? Well, it's
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm very surprised, because I think your customers are the companies that you don't seem to be interested in. If you want to do MVI, you have to work on the interface between science and the real world out there. And operationally, it's companies that operate out there. So I'm very surprised that you don't seem to be interested.
There's an old jazz standard that says, why should you be looking on the outside, standing on the outside, looking at the inside, when you could be looking at the outside, standing on the inside? That is a big question. It's important. It's also what the government asks of scientists. Get out there, work together with other partners. Don't rely on university money, don't rely just on public money. You have to do it. But there seems to be a problem. Do you have any experience about that? That it's might be a cultural difference, that there might be some mistrust or some, well, difficulty in getting to know each other?
I guess there is. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this situation. But to go one step back, it's not just about money. It's not just that companies can cough up money that can help you with your research. I think companies have problems that can be solved by your input. Companies set targets for themselves. Unilever have made sustainability a core component of their business model. That is one step, but to actually make that work, they need the work that you do. Shell, I worked for Shell. Sustainability, social responsibility is a key part of their license to operate. To get that working, they need the substance of what is happening in the work that we are discussing in this conference.
So what you're saying is you're not just asking for something, you're also offering something. But if you're offering something, then part one should be that you should know what the problem of the organization that you're going to work with is. Now, if it's there in their mission statement, sustainability is our core business, then you know what they're looking for. But how do you know what a company wants?
Well, I think the place to go is where the conflicts are. I mean, if you have negative feelings about a company, you have to ask yourself, why is that? And then you're on to the solution. That is what you and that company need to work on to make things better. Now, then to come to the example of the project that Kees mentioned, then it is not a matter of trying to get money and work on it together. Then you have to step forward and tell the company, this is your problem, and maybe you don't even know it, and I'm going to help you solve it. I mean, that's what you're here for.
So a clash of interest is a source of innovation. That is a clash of interest is a great source of innovation. Yeah, one question, please.
I don't know whether I'm interrupting. Johanna Höfgen, Eindhoven, University of Technology.
There's a microphone coming your way.
Johanna Höfgen, Eindhoven, University of Technology. I just wanted to sort of add another player, because I'm getting a bit, I don't know, angry, because we have heard Shell, we have heard Unilever, we've heard Philips, but I think there's a whole company, like a whole world of small and medium enterprises, companies which have not the big, these big names, but they also have much less time and much more resources to say, to receive you, to actually say, yeah, okay, I also have time to work with researchers because we take time also. I heard that, and. I think sort of one of the problems we have to address here also in this, when we are, as in academia, are asked to work with companies, I think it's important to also take on board the smaller ones and not only the big ones, because the big ones also have a more agenda-setting power. And I'm a bit. It's just sad that representatives of big companies are sitting there, but no smaller ones. And I think, for example, in our energy project, we're working with very, very, very small partners. And I think they are also there. And I think there you can really make it happen. What we all aim for, to sort of bridge these gaps between academia and industry. And I just wanted to put that in because I think it's
a very good point. You have smaller companies, middle-sized companies. You have startups. It also depends on what kind of research you're doing, of course, who you need to be talking to, because if you need a lot of money, you won't be getting it from a startup usually. Kees van Beers, please.
Maybe a short reaction to what you're saying. Yes, I agree. I think small and medium-sized companies are definitely very important. For example, in the project what I'm going to lead, there are also 2 medium-sized companies in it that are in the water sector. And what we learned is that they were very enthusiastic when they heard that a big player as Philips was also joining the team. So that was important for them also to come on board. But for them, it is important that we figure out a couple of of their problems.
Just for one instant, let's go back to the big company before we get to the other ones as well, because we need to solve one problem. You said work your way in, then work your way up. How do you get up in the organization? You have your friend inside the building. He's convinced that the problem of the organization is what you're going to solve. But how do you move on up within the organization? How do you get the CEO to talk to you?
Well, it depends on what you're after. I mean, if you have a counterpart in the company and you decide you want to get the company to put money into your research, then when you talk large companies, then basically you can work your way up, and generally if you make it beyond 25,000 euro, you're doing extremely well. Because the way companies are structured is that for a long time in the vertical line, nobody has any authority, so nobody can sign for anything. And by the time you come to the level where people have authority to sign, you can't reach them. So small amounts, yes, you can work your way up. If you want to go big money, you have to go top down. And there, it is not. It's not. You do not a priori need to know the person, although you need to reach the person. And I think there are 2 things that you need to reach somebody in the top and to really get them to pay attention. One is you need to show that you have a structure, that you have a plan, that you want to do something structured with these guys, not sort of I have a subject and I want to study it and I want money for a year. No, you want to talk about your problem and we are going to work on this and it's going to take more years and it's going to be structured and we're going to measure results. That is what people high up in companies sort of pay attention to. And the second thing is that indeed ask for substantial amounts of money. I mean, show that you're important and ask big.
Don't be modest.
Don't be modest. I mean, show that you're important. And so that's how you work your way top down. So bottom up, yes, you can make it to some money. Top down, you have to have a real plan that appeals to people and you have to show some substance because otherwise people won't switch on.
Rietje, before we go to the question, you wanted to say something.
No, but you can also do
okay.
First.
Right at the back.
That's not really a question, it's something which I wanted to add. One way of getting entry in a firm is also to show that you know what you're talking about. And since these projects are aimed at kind of multidisciplinary research, it may be good to go with people from different disciplines already to the firm, because then there's simply a higher chance that there's somewhere a link between you and the one who's allowed to sign, and that you get your money. So I think that's also something, a tip.
Thanks. And there was another question here.
You were first, I think.
Oh.
Hey, I'm Rob Lebrink, Wageningen University. Hearing these stories about working together with the big companies, I miss one aspect which I think is an issue also for researchers. That's the fact, how does it deal with integrity? And I'm not saying that if you work together with a large company that you cannot be an independent researcher, or that you're not integer. But why would you risk being maybe accused by a peer scientist, or take the risk that other people can question your independence, as apparently it's not that much used working together with the big companies. So you can question to what extent is it really necessary to work with the big companies. So if you look at the cost benefit, it might be logical that it's not that much done at the moment.
Well, Rietje, please.
Yes, well, both interventions just came a little bit in the direction of the question I would like, or the point I would like to make. We are talking perhaps a bit too much about companies, the company perspective only. There is also the academic perspective, and there is the small companies, and there are the big companies. There are NGOs as well, and there are other research organizations. There is the government, so there are quite some stakeholders. But let's focus on, are we focusing on projects or programs? Because I heard you talking about programs. Large amount of money is a program. We also talk about projects, which is a smaller amount of money. And for a project, it is... José, don't look so amazed. But for a project, what it is normally things that are going a little bit more bottom up, perhaps, which I would very much like to favor, to have attention for the emerging items. Then it's quite usual that researchers from academia and people from research organizations in companies, or people from NGOs, they share their enthusiasm and their conviction for a certain idea. But in order to be a little bit strategic and a little bit, hoping that you get somewhere with your idea, you should first try to take some distance from your own enthusiasm and see where could it fit in? What, for whom could this be useful? And then do, a dual trajectory. One is your research, and one is the more strategic. Is it useful for a company or for an NGO? What's in it for them? What's in it for me? Can we find each other? So it's another way of doing what Kees was just telling, but perhaps on a little bit smaller scale, because this can be about smaller projects as well. And I hate mistrust. When you want to work with people, building trust is a very important thing. So I would never think that I would no longer be an integer person. My integrity is my personal thing and not depending on with whom I'm working. So these are reactions more or less on the question. But I think universities should coach their researchers, should coach students in working this strategic way. Because normally, this is universities want to educate researchers, their own follow-up, which is, 20% of all the students, 80% goes to all different societal positions. So I think that should be taken very, very serious, and being able in more strategic thinking should be in the curricula of university.
Okay, I'll get to your question later, but I think we have about 10 more minutes here, and what I would really like is for everybody to go home feeling inspired rather than amused or anything. So it's, you know, because everybody here is working on projects and programs, but everybody needs to go home and feel a certain energy and certain ideas of, okay, you know, this helps me out. I can get further with what I really want. So we can't talk about each of the programs, and we can't give specific advice to everybody like, okay, your program, you should talk to this person, he can help you on this, or you can put it in the market through him, or you can have more data through him, or whatever, because that will be too specific. But in general, to give some energy, some inspirational energy. You started out because you said, I'm surprised no one here is working together with the private sector. Can you just give the people a bit of inspiration?
Yeah, I would like to go back to the remark made, sort of why would I do that and put my integrity at risk. I think I would advise you to get a lot more relaxed about that. I mean, it's a weird perception that across the gap from us to the private sector, there are a load of crooks sitting there waiting to rip you off. I mean, these people have problems, and these people are as concerned about their integrity as you are. So I think the first step in A, enriching the work you're doing, and B, getting more resources available, is to be open-minded towards it in a critical way. You know, don't be naive, but I would say go there and see what it can do for you, because and yes, watch your integrity, don't be naive, but I don't see it as your biggest problem.
Okay, and when you do that, I think you will learn that these people in the private sector, they are really interested in broader projects and only projects that leading directly to a profit. And they are also very well informed about a lot of things, because they do not only talk to you, but also to other academic people.
I think that I'm misunderstood. I'm not saying that if you work together with the company, then you may risk your integrity. I'm only saying that if you work with another company, other independent researchers, they might question your integrity. And I'm wondering why, as a researcher, you would risk the fact that other people might question your integrity. I'm not saying that you cannot work or that you lose your integrity if you work together with the company, but you face the risk that other people might question it.
Gossip.
I think you should have the courage to stand up to that challenge. Come on, I mean, if you are a solid researcher and you have done an honest to God job, and people challenge you and say you're accused, then you should have the courage and fight it. I mean, it may sound naive, but I think there is a point at which you should be counted.
Mr. Stemerdink.
Yeah, well, just to comment, because I feel a bit disconnected with the discussion now. In the last round of the MVI program, I think 25 projects has been funded of people who are collaborating with a variety of firms, and many of them are here. I think your question perhaps was not really understood well, because it was first of all a question who has experience. Well, some of the people who are here have not much experience, but they are really looking forward to work in a project in which we will collaborate.
Just getting started.
Firms.
Yeah.
So I would like to invite everybody to go to the poster session, and you will hear a lot about it. So in that sense, there is no problem or fear or whatever that we have to overcome here, I think.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Well, José van Eindhoven. I hesitated to put my hand on about cooperating with private business because I never did a project together with them. But for instance, in Rotterdam, there was an Economic Development Board Rotterdam, in which we cooperated with a lot of companies, the universities, the education universities, and so that's also a way of cooperating. And I remember discussing with Unilever the issue of sustainability. I was also cooperating in another, network with Jeroen van der Veer from Shell. So, well, is that cooperating with a company? Well, it's cooperating with people who have ideas within a company. And my personal projects have been either not paid for instance, a project in Rotterdam on whether a train could safely drive under the river when there was, for instance, chlorine in it. No, well, a company, AXO, has picked this up after a number of years. So there are ways of cooperating which is not having a project or a program in which money is driving from one to the other. And also, I have been discussing about patents with people when I was the president of Erasmus University about whether the medical center could have patents and how they could work with it. So there were people from that had their own company who gave advice on how to do with patents. So I think there are different ways of working with companies of different sorts that so not everything fits to each person. Indeed, if you are in STW, I was once asked to be in the board of STW, I know that there is one of the starting points that there should be the perspective of cooperating with company. But I also believe in people who think that their result will be useful for companies or for other parties in society.
Well, thank you very much. One last question for the Mr. right behind you with, okay, two questions. Two remarks.
Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, sometimes interests are not really aligned, I think, with what researchers perhaps want to do and what companies, large companies want to do. For example, like goals of a company might not be as ambitious as what a researcher is trying to do. And so there is a clash of interest. And I was wondering, how can we overcome that once a large company has already claimed, for example, that certain goals are different in comparison with societal expectations or political expectations?
Anyone here? Anyone? Anywhere else?
Well, it goes a bit back to what we said earlier. I think if there is such a clash, you're onto something. I think then you need to really sort out between the researcher and the company where it goes wrong. And indeed, it may be that you're not going to work together, but at least you have the sort of contact that José is referring to, and that from which you can draw value. I'm not saying that it should always end up in a sort of happy marriage going on for years. What I'm saying is that it is that you need to get the dynamics into that relationship, and either you then conclude that you have to work together to make it to bring it further, yeah, or you don't get together and you just each go your own way. There's nothing wrong with that.
There was a question from the Mr. there.
Maybe a comment that was already addressed by, I think, Mr. Stemerdink. You asked the question, do you work together with companies? Well, that was a bit of a non-question because we all do. It's obligatory within this program. That was maybe why you didn't get any response. So okay. Make that straight. We all do. We have been doing that for many years. But what Mr. from Shell is saying is very interesting, because he says up to a certain level, and that goes pretty high in the organization, people do not have the authority to sign for a budget. That has strong consequences for a program like MVI, in which you have to have cooperation of companies, also the bigger ones. But I think the same problem holds also for small and medium enterprises, is to get relatively small amounts of funding that you need for these kinds of programs. So to end positively, as the chairman wants, I have a proposal. So we go approach now from top down. So Mr. Linse can go to the CEO of Shell and say, we got this small little problem. It's a relatively small budget. But let's sign as Shell and Unilever and a couple of other guys together. And we fund the MVI program with relatively big money. So we get rid of all this small nitty-gritty asking for 25,000 for in the MVI program. Add some rules. Of course, you have to have cooperation. You have to have real cooperation with the companies, but the money is settled. So if we end in this way, I will be very happy and we can go to dinner.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you. Tomorrow there'll be a whole day of new interviews and lectures and everything. For now, thank you very much.